Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is Sunday morning, day 235, October the 29th, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in this Sunday morning. We'll see how my voice does. Well, it has been an incredible week of news, obviously. There's so many stories I wasn't able to get to, so I'm going to try to get to some of those stories here today, play a little bit of catch-up ball. But, you know, just as I'm doing so, another major breaking news story happening, I guess it was Saturday morning when I first stumbled onto this, and I haven't heard anyone or seen anyone else reporting on this right now, but it's coming to us again from the Washington Post. This will be the third story this week from the Washington Post that is definitely not favorable to the rotten Reverend Clinton and the DNC. So here we go. Are you ready for this one, folks? Hold on to your seats. Washington Post is reporting that an attorney named Michael Sussman, S-U-S-S-M-A-N, who works for Perkins Coie, the law firm out in Seattle that was behind the dossier, or at least was the law firm that Mr. Elias worked for, who was the one who hired GPS Fusion, which produced the dossier. It appears that Mr. Sussman, who is an attorney for Perkins Coie, was the attorney who brought in CrowdStrike. Michael Sussman, according to the Washington Post, an attorney for Perkins Coie, was the man who brought in CrowdStrike. What I'm talking about is he brought in CrowdStrike as the company who came in to analyze the DNC servers after the alleged hacking. Now keep in mind, right after the DNC came out and said that they had been hacked, as the dishonorable James Comey said while testifying in Congress under oath, he said that on multiple times, at multiple levels, they attempted to get the DNC server to analyze it, and the DNC refused to allow the FBI to look at those servers. We also had the Director of Homeland Security under Obama, Jay Johnson, also testifying in those open hearings, and he said the exact same thing that the dishonorable Comey said. He said, yeah, we tried multiple times to get those servers, to analyze those servers, and to assist in helping the DNC find out who may have hacked those servers. As well as we have experienced at this, we were going to help them putting in the patches to make sure that it would prevent them from being hacked again. And again, it was Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz, head of the DNC at that time, who refused to allow the DHS to look at those servers. So, what we're learning here is that the FBI was not permitted to look at those servers. The DHS was not permitted to look at those servers to find out who may have been behind the hacking. Instead, they brought in CrowdStrike. Now, we've known that for a very long time, but what we didn't know was who was really behind the decision to bring in CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike, of course, refuses to testify in front of either the Senate Intel Committee or the House Oversight Committee, flat out refusing. They have walked back their findings. They are no longer really putting much stock in their own findings. And this is a major bombshell. And there's a bigger story going on here. Again, this is the third story broken by the Washington Post that's unfavorable to the DNC and the rotten Reverend Clinton. So what's going on here? Well, as we talked about 2 days ago, these reporters from the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the New Yorker had all contacted the rotten Reverend Clinton, or her campaign team, her campaign attorneys, including Mr. Elias, as did the New York Times and the New Yorker, to try to verify the dossier. And on many occasions, all these reporters, left-wing reporters who have been carrying the water for the rotten Reverend Clinton during the entire campaign, were lied to. And they are very unhappy that they were lied to. And as you can see, they are now turning on the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and the rotten Reverend Clinton. They're turning on them. They're very upset that they were lied to and made to look like fools. And so this is a little bit of payback. This is a little bit of payback. Plus, they have nothing to fear now by running these stories because the rotten Reverend Clinton has no political power. And so what you can see here is that the cover that the DNC and the rotten Reverend Clinton have enjoyed for the past year and a half is going away. These left-wing publications, they got to pay the bills. These journalists have to break stories, and they can see where this investigation is going. Just like the Republican donor had to come out, this law firm, Perkins Coie, and Mr. Elias had to come out because they know that Devin Nunes was going to get the information that was going to allow him to determine exactly who were these donors were. He was going to learn that from the documents that he is going to be getting, and they knew he was going to get these documents, and so that's why both these donors had to come out and reveal themselves. Because had they not, then what would have happened is that Mr. Nunes would have gotten his hands on this information. It would have showed him the donors, and it would have became public information who they were. But along with them, it would have produced a very long client list of Perkins Coie. And Perkins Coie did not want to see all their clients exposed. Because what will happen is the next thing that happens once all your clients have been exposed in the national media like that, they are going to fire you and find another law firm. And Perkins Coie knows that they're obviously in some hot water with this dossier thing, and so they wanted to get it out there and get ahead of it, as opposed to having it found out by Nunes and make them look even guiltier. So this is certainly a way for Perkins Coie to try to save face as much as possible. They know they're going to take a hit, but they did not want to take the big hit, which was to have their client list revealed, their customers. So this was a face-saving move and to limit the liability and the fallout from their having been associated with the dossier. And so that's what's going on there. So we are seeing a couple of dynamics shifting in a drastic way over the past week, with the left-wing inside the Beltway media very upset that they were lied to by the Clinton administration or by the Clinton campaign, and by, I'm sure, the Obama administration as well was probably contacted. They knew this as well, and of course all the other players, the DNC and the whole nine yards. So obviously the inside the Beltway left-wing media is very upset. They got a little bit of the case of a chapped ass over this being lied to for a year and a half. They didn't appreciate it, and now they're offering a little payback. And of course, the donors, the Democratic donor, which of course now we find out is the rotten Reverend Clinton, have been exposed, as well as the Republican donor. We'll get to that in just a moment. So anyway, this is a major piece of breaking news. Again, the third story this week, Michael Sussman of Perkins Coie was the attorney who brought in CrowdStrike to analyze those servers. That is a major piece of breaking news, and it shows us that Mr. Elias and this law firm, Perkins Coie, that they are more than just a law firm that represents clients. This is a law firm that obviously is deeply engaged in left-wing activism and goes beyond just activism. They are deeply rooted in the matters of the DNC, and were deeply rooted in the 2016 Rotten Reverend Clinton campaign. They were a major player in this whole thing. So this is going to expose Perkins Coie in a very big way, and I can certainly expect that they are going to find themselves certainly appearing before Congress. They may have to be subpoenaed. They might find themselves being investigated by a special counsel. Perkins Coie is no longer just a law firm that was doing legal services for the Clintons or the DNC. They are there's a much deeper involvement with this law firm and these attorneys, which are nothing more than political hitmen and operatives. And we're going to learn more about them and more about their connections But finding out that they're the ones who recommended and brought in CrowdStrike is a major, major developing piece of news, because it goes right to the heart of the Russia hacking myth and the other myths that go along with that. Because if Perkins Coie and attorneys for that law firm were operating as agents of the DNC and the Rotten Reverend Clinton campaign and involved in the dirty dealings with the dirty dossier, and then we find out that they're also involved in the cover-up of what really happened with those servers. Most of us believe, of course, that we're not hacked, that it was an inside job, a leak by the Democratic staffer at the DNC, Seth Rich. So this is very interesting, and I'm sure Mr. Manafort, I'm sure his lawyers are going to be paying very close attention to this, and we'll talk about why in just a moment. So there you go, major piece of breaking news, and I expect by tomorrow you're going to hear all the major pundits and members of Congress commenting on this as well, as it gives us a lot more insight into how deep and dark this political espionage campaign was, and we're finding out that Perkins Coie was a much bigger player than we've been led to believe. Let's see. The next major piece of news, it was revealed that we learned who the Republican donor was, and of course that's Paul Singer, which should surprise nobody. He, of course, is the primary funder behind the Washington Free Beacon, which is a hardcore neocon website, very closely connected also to Bill Kristol, another huge anti-Trumper. Both of these individuals, Mr. Singer, Bill Kristol, the Washington Beacon, were, at the time, they were the people who came out and were strongly pushing Mr. McMullen out in Colorado, or no, Utah. Mr. McMullen, who's a former, FBI guy or CIA guy, intel guy, deep state operator, who was going to try to split the vote in Utah and keep Trump from getting the electoral votes in Utah. He had no chance of winning. He was just going to try to cost Trump Utah. He failed, of course, but anyway, this is a little cabal that you had going on here. So Mr. Singer, very deeply connected to the neocons and the anti-Trumpers. It should also be noted that Mr. Singer was also a major contributor, the largest contributor to the campaign of Marco Rubio, Little Marco, who is a hardcore anti-Trumper. It should also be noted that Mr. Singer, the neocon, was a huge supporter also of Paul Ryan. So you can see that the neocons, what they were up to, and you can see what all these things are starting to show us, that there was a much larger conspiracy. It didn't just involve Democrats. It involved never-Trumpers as well, all on the same team. You can throw John McCain in on this as well, Senator Magoo, and we're just getting to the tip of the iceberg. We're going to learn a very great deal more as this plays itself out. It may take a year or so longer just to get through all of the layers of corruption and all the players who were involved in this massive espionage campaign, which appears to have been just a massive collaboration between the entire Obama administration, anti-Trumpers, the deep state, the intel agencies. This is so much bigger than Watergate, my friends, and this is what we're going to learn. This is what we are going to learn. Be patient and keep watching. I'll be back tomorrow with even more news, and we will see where all this leads us. Thank you so much for tuning in. You all have a good evening. Thanks. Bye.